Okay then, folks. So David's just not the guy that gives away free learning resource material. Oh. He's actually been in mine and Joe's position, where he's actually stood in front of learners and taught, and so's his dad. Yeah, and he's also a third generation. We're recording that, are we?
Yeah.
Oh, well, are we? Okay, let's see how much time we get. Third generation electrician as well. So granddad, dad, and yourself. And you've got 4 smaller would-be electricians as well.
4 small strapping young men in the making. Oh, yeah. They're one of them's going to have to be, aren't they?
Yeah, one of them will have to be.
One of them will be, yeah.
So we open it out to the audience then. So what would you, it can be as simple as you like, it can be as complicated as you like. Is there a question even from the adults amongst the audience? Is there a question, not you Joe, is there a question from anyone? I said adults. So anyone got a question for us?
You know, with the change to the 18th edition test result sheets, what's your view on them dropping one of the RCD tests?
So we got 5 times only, yeah?
Yeah, there's always been debate with people about whether to put ×1 or ×5, because if the RCD is required for the requirements of 415.1, where it's needed for additional protection, then you need to test it at ×5. Then that would need to be there. But if the RCD is there for the purpose of other means, such as, you know, fire protection or compliance with 705, horticulture, agriculture, what have you, then we should still verify that, and we should test it at ×1. So we should put both ×1 and ×5. That's always what I've said we should do. We should do ×1 all the time if it's required, ×5 if it's needed for 415.1. Taking 1 out just makes it even more awkward. So if it's ×5 only, I guess we only need to do it if it's there for the purpose of 415.1. I think they should, the more they put on the schedule of test results, the better. But they keep messing it around.
Do you think they took it off because they needed a box to verify the AFDD unit? Because that looks remarkably why it was removed.
It does, doesn't it?
Because it didn't quite fit in with an extra box, did it?
Yeah, but I mean...
Or is that me being cynical?
I mean, that's just going to be not applicable for a long time. It's similar with the purpose of functionality. Now, the requirements of functionality, if you go to part 6, the requirement of functionality is to verify the functionality of every device.
Yep.
MCB, RCD,
we do it.
Accessory, but they keep putting it under RCDs.
Yep.
So is it a functionality test as given in part 6,
yep,
which is not RCD functionality, or is it the RCD's functionality? 1 year they put it out, yep, 1 year they brought it in, and they've now done the same, and they've brought in AFDD functionality. They should just have a functionality column, and when part 6 says functionality, yep, which includes AFDDs if present, RCDs if present, as well as accessories, switches, control gear, 1 column, functionality. But and have a precursor that says this incorporates RCDs, AFDDs, blah, 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 blah.
But circuit breakers is one everyone misses. Well, how many people check a circuit breaker? So when my students are doing their little jobs, they go live, we obviously check the switch for the lighting circuit, we check the RCD test button, but we actually make them break the actual circuit breaker.
Make them break.
Yeah. And equally I say to them, is it the upstairs light that's gone off and not the downstairs? Have we labelled the board right as a semi-check? But it's another switch that we never seem to, in industry, check.
I've often, when I was on the tools full time, I'd often, in the wholesale, I'd have my old continuity tester, and I'd actually, on the job, test across. Because I remember, I was in Bracknell, and I went to Gerrard's Cross on a Saturday morning, and I picked the MCB up, and I did the job, nothing else was open, MCB wouldn't turn off.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, well, what do I do now? So now I had to kind of go backwards and forwards, but had I actually checked it in the actual wholesaler, I'd have done it. So I've always done that now. But yeah, many MCBs will end up not breaking when they should, and we're not verifying that. So back to that original question, my opinion is there should be 1 single column for functionality, and we should have a little comment that says functionality is all of those. Yeah, and we should have the ×1 if it's there for the purpose of ×1, and the ×5 for if it's there for the purpose of 415.1.
Can I add on to that? Your views on ramp testing, and I only bring that up because now with them going on and on more about earth leakage or natural earth leakage through a lot of
the protective conductor current.
You could be checking through a ramp test to see whether or not your RCD has the possibility of slowly building up a fault with it tripping up too early.
I think ramp test is a great tool. It's a great fault finding tool. And I think if we report the value of a ramp test, it gives us a great understanding. If we have a nuisance tripping, if I have an installation that's got a 30 milliamp RCD, but the Sparky installed it said it had a 22 milliamp ramp test, I can immediately just look at the equipment that's been introduced since to see if that's contributed to further protective conductor current that's making that thing go.
But how many electricians don't realise that an RCD rate of 30 milliamps will take 23, 22, 24 only in order for it to trip?
Unfortunately, yes. I mean, there are a lot of electricians that just go with what it says on the front. They don't understand the characteristics of the circuitry and the actual requirements of the device. If you test, if you test an RCD and it trips at 23, 24, you're going to say to yourself, "It's a sensitive RCD." Doesn't mean it's not compliant with the requirements now. But yeah, I think a ramp, an entry of ramp testing would be very, very good because it allows a lot of future reference. A lot of information to work with.
Thanks, Dave. Great question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyone else? We only have one, so look at them all here going, I'll get home in a minute, I'll get home in a minute if I don't ask any questions.
Is there anything you think they missed on the 18th edition?
How long we got on the tape? What would you bring in? So let's just take there. You can have your own regulation or an alteration to a regulation, and you only can have one. Sorry. One, because we haven't got the time. What are you going to change or what would you add?
There's many different areas I would go to. I mean, first of all, I would definitely go back to the old, I'd look at the definitions of personnel.
Okay.
Skilled person, instructed person, skilled person is defined as, skilled person electrically. They have the term of adequate education.
Yes.
We need further reference as to what adequacy of education is, and we need some support in the regulations with that. I would, if I was to do anything immediately, I would definitely change the reporting.
Right.
The reporting.
Simplify it or more complicated?
The schedule of inspections, I would increase the way it's. I would introduce schedules of inspections for different wiring system types.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Because you have one large.
So you're not fishing your way through everything.
Yeah. Because if you have one, it's one installation certificate for one source of supply. Supply characteristics. That's all fine. But you can have inspections for one method of protection against another. And it does say in there, additional information. So if you have the protective measure of ADS, that's the golden one we stand to.
Yep.
But if you also have, 412 double reinforced insulation, 413 electrical separation, there's it just goes add information, but there's no information to add. And so many guys will either not add that information or they won't even know they're supposed to.
Okay.
So there needs to be more support resource for that and to add inspection schedules for the differing wiring systems. So an inspection for a PVC wiring system, an inspection for a steel conduit, just so that you can actually diversify the inspection. Because right now the way it is there's a tick, there's a tick, there's a tick, there's a tick, there's an NA, there's a tick, there's a tick, but does that tick represent which part of a wiring system? Yeah. So I'd explode it a bit, but I wouldn't do what they did in Amendment 3, which is actually give all the regulation numbers. It's a bit of a how-to manual now. But
it's a how-to manual without any real examples. So when I wrote my one, I had to write examples against everything. So this is, when you're in college, this is an example of what this would be, and I've wrote it in. Sending you to the reg number ain't really, I know it's not, it's a technical document, but it's not, no one's as such gave you a really helpful guide. We know we've got code breaker with when you've got a problem, okay, and it clearly explains it to you, but it would be nice, and I know a lot of electricians have taken my guide to the schedule of inspection and used it themselves, because I have broke it down to level 1, level 2 and level 3 learner level, which I think is
have you had to kind of play with it a bit to do that? That's, I think, I mean, there are many little regulations I would play around with, but the reporting is one of the biggest issues we've got in this industry right now. And I'd have to go into there first to.
And we've got to remember minimum standard, not the gold Rolls-Royce standard. We can take it above.
Exactly. I mean, take for example in BS. Oh God, I'm going to try not to overdo it. In BS7909, which is the Code of Practice for Temporary Electrical Installations for the Event and Entertainment Industry, the schedule of test results requires for every final circuit a prospective short circuit current test. This considers the value of length, because as we put long lengths in, we think about the value of current in a short circuit scenario. Is that sufficient current to turn off that protected device? We don't do that here.
No.
So we have, what we do in our schedule of test results is we go, oh, ZS, and that's earth faults. Those earth faults could be low due to parallels.
Yep.
Yeah, there could be incorporated parallels resulting in lower than needed earth fault loop impedances. But we don't really verify the prospective short circuit current effectively at the end to verify if there's enough current to disconnect that protected device
on
at
short
the source.
circuit.
Yeah, so we need to incorporate that, and also I would say we need to consider the division a bit better. on the scheduler test results as well. You know, I mean, we've now introduced the ZS at DB. That's all well and good.
Yeah, it's good.
But we need to kind of make it work as one report a bit better.
I quite like the fact they made the minor works a bit more grown up.
Yes, you know, adding the voltage for the insulation resistance test, that was a good move. And adding a value for protective conductor, you know, yes. You don't want to just tick continuity protective conductor. Because what is that value? And
it's and like you said, now we're doing a ZS at disk board. It stops that made up ZE added to your dead R1, R2 to come up with a overall made up value, which makes everybody sleep at night really soundly. Because we don't, can you smell it's connected to an external earth source on the minor works when you arrive?
And again, the problem with the inquiry of a ZE, if I inquire a ZE for a TNCS to be 0.35, I then connect it to an active system with a ZE of 0.42 or a really low one of 0.14, the 0.14 is going to result in a really large fault current, a lot larger than designed. A much larger fault current than designed may mean the protective conductors aren't sized effectively, may mean the line conductors aren't sized effectively, and what I'm not seeing enough of is guys who do the inspection and testing, then referring back to chapter 43. The T equals K squared S squared over I squared thing?
That thing.
Verifying that the current that takes the conductor to its final limiting temperature, so a 70-degree thermoplastic, has a final limiting temperature of 160 degrees if it's copper. We need to know if we have a large fault current, how long is that fault there for? And when we take a measurement of ZS, we can then take the current equivalent from that ZS and go back to chapter 43. They don't ask us to do that in part 6.
Do you think this is where the electronic QS is going to come in and help us then? So things like Ryan Dempsey's software and that are actually going to take it off our hands, aren't they? So
this is, yes, I mean, if we crunch the number through and we put the maths on the number, it gives you so much more information. And, you know, I mean, it's Ryan's story to tell, but he's had a great success story last week against an industry body with regards to standards of the reports.
I had that conversation.
It's a really good thing. If we put the maths in, though, we'll realise if we measure the data and we put it through the formula in the regs, you get so much more understanding on the circuit. And that's something I do on every 18th edition. You know, I mean, I do it on the one online. I talk about the formula, but then I say, okay, well, let's go away from the inquired value. Let's go with the measured value. And yes, achieving maximum ZS is fine, but if you have a lower than maximum, while that's fine, the current may not be fine. And that's what isn't kind of done in part 6.
And the reason people aren't doing it is because we keep shying away from doing live tests, because we'll throw the old electricity aware regulations at people and say we can't work live and all the rest of it. I'm a great believer in it. I'd rather carry out a controlled live test to satisfy myself than make up numbers that somebody tells me to add to a box I'm going to sign. So a theoretical ZS of a circuit made up from ZE given from inquiry and 2 dead tests, to me suggests I might as well guess that number before I start. Because I'm just guessing. I've had a lot of stick for that online, especially on Facebook when I put that out there at one point, because they kept going, but you're working live, but you're working live. I'm working live for a reason, because I need to understand what the ZS of that circuit actually is and not pretend it.
No, I spend a lot of my time with clients kind of talking about live work. You know, we can't permit live work, but we must sanction live work. That's absolutely fine. Live work is fine if it's done in a controlled manner. First, you've got to say why you need to do it, and who needs to do it, and who shouldn't be near it, and how you control it. It's very simple. But if we do it, we get accurate information, which we can then get so much more understanding on the circuit. Because what will happen is stuff will go wrong, stuff will catch fire, it will be inquired, but it won't be accurate.
No,
and that's something and we keep softening the end result of this kind of work, and we need to increase the knowledge on it, increase the material on it, and that's something that, you know, I'll be doing again more and more down the line. Is, you know, here's some numbers. They're not inquired numbers, they're not guessed numbers, they're actual numbers. And what do they mean?
That's good.
Something we're doing a lot of in 7909 right now.
Brilliant. Good question. Anyone else?
Just on practical note, one of the first video of yours that I saw was those holiday flats in Whitby.
Yes.
Just how common is it to come to a job that it's all been put into use, the loads have been put on?
Every job. Every job. That scenario, this is the way contracting is these days. I was working for another company as a subcontractor, who were subcontracting from another company, who were subcontracting from the builder. Okay? And the job was in, the job was turned on, it was energized, and people were using it. And it's well, we know in part 6, initial verification shall be carried out during erection. Unfortunately, if the personnel who carry out the inspection are not the persons on site during erection, then that never works. It's unfortunately it's just a big issue with builders, with contracts, where they'll have one team going in, doing the graft, doing the work, doing the install, and then another smaller group of guys who'll go around afterwards, and that never complies.
But that's the QS problem, isn't it? QS getting on site, the guys are just chucking it in, and QS checks at the end. Well, he's missed 75% of it, if not more.
It's a huge QS problem.
Yeah.
I've worked with a few companies. I actually was I had a meeting with another one last week who they're a registered company, and they've contracted to another company who are registered with the same company, and they've had 7 or 8 years of work carried out, and it was testing the landlord's distribution to the dwellings in multi-storey flats. But in the pre-agreed limitations, which were never written down, it was decided not to turn the circuit off.
Oh, right.
Not to actually disturb the tenant.
Okay.
So these guys have now for 7 or 8 years been testing these distribution systems, having lim for ZS, lim for ZE, but they've inquired ZE.
Lovely.
And but they've managed to carry insulation resistance between live conductors.
Live?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
For every single thing.
I imagine the machine was shouting at you when you did it.
But the same one person who runs the company has QS signed every report for 7 or 8 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And that's the QS model right now. And so
no, we don't like that.
QS model really does help encourage very bad contracting practice, and that's what I experienced in where was it? Whitby.
Whitby.
Yeah, it was already in service. I was there to sign off. I wasn't the QS. I was asked to sign it off. After 20 minutes, I called the guy. I said, "I'm going to give you a certificate that says XXXX. Do you want me to carry on or go home? Carry on. Give me a thing that needs to be done." I never got a call back, so he either got it fixed or someone else signed it off.
Did you get paid, David?
I got paid.
Okay, all right, okay, so that's nothing worse. Question over here, there was another one here.
Yeah, if you weren't the 3rd generation of electrician in your family, would you have still gone into the electrical industry?
Great question. I wish I'd asked that one.
That's a very good question. I honestly don't know. When I was 7, I was in the back of the van, and I was going on the sites, and I was having my hand shoved up fishing for cables on sites. So it was kind of like
age 7.
Age 7. Because I'd see my old man at the weekends, and from age 7 I would be there and I'd be on the job, and we had a contract. We had a stores at Ascot Race Course. So I'd pop in, I'd see the guys. And when it came to leave school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. They ask you when you're this stupid age, what do you do for the rest of your life? I don't know. And the old man said, "Look, you don't know what you want to do, but I was going to do A-levels. I don't know what it was. I think it was geography." I was like, "There's a really nice girl, you know." And I decided to kind of pursue the direction she was going. Yeah. But the old man just said, "Look, if you come and do an apprenticeship, you'll have a skill, and you'll never be without work."
Oh, I heard that a few times as well.
I had that. I fell for that.
Yeah, I did as well.
I did that. I went on the apprenticeship at Ascot Race Course as soon as I was qualified at the time. You know, 2391 and doing the whole part 1, part 2. So I say qualified because we're always learning. I said to my dad, "I said, you can pay me more." No. So I left. Yeah. But I kept going back to do some more work with him, and I worked with him a number of times.
And you taught with him as well. So
would I have done anything else though? I still to this day, think, would I have done this? Would I have done that?
Could we start a late boy band together? Do you think?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Do you reckon?
But I don't know. I mean, again, I was on the tools for 10 years or so, and then I started mixing it with teaching, and teaching kind of I got the bug with teaching because I had to relearn everything. All the stuff that you learn, you kind of as you start working, some of it stays in, some of it you leave behind. You know nothing until you come and teach, and then you realise you knew nothing, and you know less than nothing when you start teaching. So you either want to teach because you want to relearn and you want to help the guys, or you just shy away from it. And I wanted to relearn, and I found that I was very good at communicating with the guys. So you didn't do it for the holidays then? I've never done the holidays. I've always been part-time and sessional. I've never worked FE like you. I've never had your holidays. Yeah. That's another story. That's another one. But no, no idea. Okay. So, are we still recording, folks? Is it still running? Camera's still going? Yeah. Okay. So we'll have. I better look at the camera then. We might get cut off in this one, so we'll try a very final one because Dylan's great. Go on, Dil.
What route would you recommend being an electrician, as in domestic, commercial, or industrial?
Good question again. So I'm not going to cut off it.
Right, the domestic sector is great. I worked in social housing, voice properties, clients. Every you know, the work is very diverse. Sometimes there are frustrations with, you know, getting around a building that's not void, but it's great, and and if you're working for yourself, it's a great industry to be in, because you know you can work in a day on one site, then another site. The problem is access to that. You've got to do it the right way. You know, the 2-3 years you guys.
3 years. 3 years to get to work for yourself.
Yeah. Perfect. Yep. None of the 5 day, 5 week, none of that kind of nonsense. If you do it the right way, all right, then it's a great industry working. Commercial, industrial, it's great, but as long as you mix the skills, you know, if you're just doing conduit, trunking, tray, you know, you can easily kind of just become a robot on site.
Metal muncher.
Yeah. Yeah. And then your technical knowledge, your design knowledge may just fall behind. If you can find work that uses both, that's the best area to go into.
And the problem is chasing the carrot. So you'll go where, if there's good money on conduit, you go conduit, and then you spend 18 months doing that, and then you find a good job on tray, because it pays well, not a good job necessarily, and that can crucify you, kind of.
Exactly.
It's hard to keep a range. If you were playing cricket, do you only want to be a batsman? Do you want to be a bowler? Do you want to be a wicket keeper, or do you want to be an all-rounder? I'd say electrical industry, the most fun is to be an all-rounder in it. Yeah.
Try and find work that provides, you know, using all of the skills you get at college. And I think that's one of the hardest parts, is because at the end of it, you end up using some, and then you soften others. You know, I mean, when I started training, the first thing they asked me to do when I was going to come on like properly with them is they asked me to go into a workshop like this, and they asked me to terminate MI and talk through the process of terminating MI.
Love MI.
You know, because obviously that's one of the skills that some training colleges are just, you know, MI now is a picture on a wall, you know, with some kind of like, you know.
We do it. We do it. I love MI. Last thing.
And so, you know, skills like that I used, thankfully, because my apprenticeship basket race course was such a diverse area of work. Maintenance, installation, it was a brilliant place to do an apprenticeship at the time, before it was rebuilt. But yeah, try to aim at the work that introduces as much of the skills you learn, because then they won't soften and they'll stay up, and then you'll be able to go anywhere later on. Yeah, that's probably the way I would look at it. It's not so much as commercial, industrial, domestic. I'd say, well, which is the best representation of the skills I like or the skills I want to use?
That's good advice. So I think we deserve a round of applause there for that one. Thank you. We're going to end another one. We're going to do another end, I'm afraid. This is another video.
What? We'll
do another end now.
Oh, okay. All right, another one of those.
So if you got to this point again, we can fumble through this bit. So what are we going to say, David?
We're going to say we hope this video has been
some help.